Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. The Minister of Justice, Thembi Simelane Nkandimeng, is in trouble because of VBS, and the President is in trouble because of the Minister. Now, why is the Minister of Justice in trouble? Fundamentally, it's because there's an appearance that she received a kickback for her municipality depositing money into VBS Mutual Bank, and that she received that kickback or bribe through a loan from a company that was facilitating deposits into VBS banks. And this company is known as Gundo Wealth. There's an appearance as well that she attempted to remove herself from the scandal after basically seeing what was up by paying the money back in 2020 after an investigation was carried out on VBS Mutual Bank by Treasury. The President is in trouble. Why? Because of the minister and this particular matter. Why is he in trouble? Why am I saying he's in trouble? This is going to be the second big test of the DA and ANC coalition. Second big test. I'm going to say why, so the first big test later. So it puts the President in trouble because if he does not act, he may jeopardize this particular DA and ANC coalition. That's number one. Number two, he may also jeopardize the narrative of his administration. The narrative being that the ANC is now in a period of renewal, and the narrative that the DA and ANC coalition is an anti-corruption administration. He has the risk, number three, of creating the impression, if he does nothing, that the DA has a group of clean ministers, but the ANC has all of these ministers who are impugned. That's a risk that he creates if he does not act. But if he does act, he still has a risk. And that risk is that he opens himself to serious questions of his own conflicts of interest in the VBS matter, right? One of the issues that are raised in this matter is whether the minister can stay in the position of Minister of Justice while overseeing the office responsible for investigating the very matter that she herself has now been implicated in. That's the issue as it pertains to the minister. Now, that particular issue has the same impact on the president because this is exactly the same question which applies to Phala, where the president is under investigation. If you recall, last year, it was reported that the investigation into the theft of money at President Cyril Ramaphosa's Phala farm is almost complete, and the matter now rests in the ambit of the National Prosecuting Authority. The announcement on the progress of the investigation was revealed by the head of the Hawks, Godfrey Lebeya, in June of 2023, during the release of the unit's fourth quarter achievements in Pretoria. So, in effect, the question of conflict of interest that applies to the Minister of Justice applies to the President in the same way. They both oversee people who are responsible for investigating them. So if one is conflicted, the other is conflicted, right? If he does act, more dominoes could also fall from his cabinet. He does have options, though, of moving the minister to another cabinet position. This deals with the issue of conflict of interest, but does not necessarily deal with the issue of the nature of the allegations against her at this particular point. But it does deal with the issue. Obviously, if she steps down or steps aside, there would have to be some kind of a cabinet reshuffle because a deputy minister cannot be appointed into that role because they are not part of cabinet. His options would be either to get a minister from outside of parliament because the president can appoint two people who are from outside parliament into cabinet, or there would have to be some real, playing around with the personnel that he has at this particular point. So this is where things are. The minister spoke in parliament explaining to the parliamentary committee. And she tried to explain to them, the Justice Committee, as to why this story of hers made sense. This is what she said. Just take a listen, make a decision for yourself if you think the explanation is adding up.
It's a topical matter which has been on our media reports and has gained attention in discussion over the matter. Dealing with the tenor in which I was the executive mayor of Polokwane municipality and questioning whether I acted improper or it could have been a best decision made differently. I want to thank the committee for the opportunity once more. I'm not going to go through the report verbatim as members have it. Comment to honorable members. Thank you. As you have correctly indicated, Honorable Chair, it's a topical matter which has been on our media reports and has gained attention in discussion over the matter. Dealing with the tenor in which I was the executive mayor of Polokwane municipality and questioning whether I acted improper or it could have been a best decision made differently. I want to thank the committee for the opportunity once more. I'm not going to go through the report verbatim as members have it, but I've prepared opening remarks which just really touches into the report. And I'm sure when we get the opportunity to deliberate on the report, then we will, I will be responding to the matters that honorable members would want to make. Honorable members, it's a matter of public record again that Polokwane municipality invested money in VBS in my tenure as an executive mayor. But what is not amplified is that on the advice from technical expertise within the municipality, myself as a mayor instituted the withdrawal of Polokwane investment from VBS. My attitude at the time was that if there was anything improper with regards to municipality funds, it must be stopped forthwith. It is important to note that the withdrawal took place 2 months even before the letter from National Treasury ordered all municipalities who were investing in VBS to withdraw their investment. The published allegations are anchored around 2 questions in the main. Did I have an improper relationship with the contractor appointed by the municipality which I served as a mayor? And secondly, did I receive financial benefits from the same contractor? Honorable Chair, allow me to deal with this question. And the first one, the improper relationship. I did not have any improper relationship with the contractor appointed by the municipality. And let me give the context to this assertion. I will touch a bit on the appointment process of Gundu as the financial advisor on investment decisions of the municipality. Mayors are never involved, or councillors are never involved in procurement. So the work of appointment of a service provider is a responsibility of executives in the municipality. And in this instance, an advert was ran, a supply chain management process was undertaken, and Gundu Wealth Solutions was appointed as the investment manager, financial advisor to the municipality for a period of 3 years. This advisory work was undertaken at no financial cost to the municipality, meaning it was not a tender where you are building a house and then there is a particular budget and you are. So it was an unsolicited bid where you work at the commission that you are receiving. It's what you get to be paid for. So there is no money that was paid by Polokwane municipality to Gundu. Honourable members, I will also want us to investigate whether I had relations of any kind with Gundu Wealth. We must start with the appreciation that, as I indicated, they are not a contractor and they did not receive payment. They were appointed to provide services through a procurement process, and this was done through committees of council, which are overseeing procurement, and as per Section 52 of the MFMA, which mandates the municipal manager to report the financials of the municipality every quarter, a report was brought to council to note the appointment of Gundu Wealth Solutions. Did I receive any improper benefits? I did not receive any improper benefits from the contractor, as indicated. Again, I would want to give a bit of some context. When one is appointed as an office bearer in public service, Maybe I must start that before being a public office bearer, I've worked for Limpopo provincial government for about 15 years. From a position of an assistant director, right all the way when I resigned, I was an acting DDG. Having moved from Safety, Security, Agriculture, Office of the Premier, in fact, Office of the Premier, then Agriculture, Department of Public Works. Moved into being a office bearer in the public service. It becomes difficult to obtain employment outside public service and even to assist family members due to nepotism and favoritism or any other explanation. But also, political positions by their very own nature are short-term. And that necessitated me that I investigate the feasibility of commencing such a business, and a coffee shop seemed a feasible option so that I could create employment opportunities for myself and my next of kin. The coffee shop employed between 8 to 12 people, depending on some of the work that was contractual, and the staff may not be permanent on a day-to-day basis. And I made this consideration precisely because to ensure that I have got an alternative when the office, public office life comes to an end. Initially, I intended to withdraw partially from my retirement savings, which were coming from the pension of being an employee of the state for about 15 years. I experienced difficulties because of the cost and the charges. If I recall very well, the pension was somewhere at around 800,000 odds, and the percentage of tax and all that was making the whole idea not feasible. I asked Gundu for advice on any other idea on how best I could finance. And I was advised against the the withdrawal of the retirement savings that I spoke about. And in those discussions, Gundu then informed me and advised of a loan product that they have that I could access. In consideration for the options loan, Gundu was not a service provider, as I had said. There existed no conflict in my view in securing a loan from Gundu. I took a decision to proceed with the business, and the following steps ensued. In September 2016, on the 26th, I concluded the registration of T5, which was coming from a previous company that I'd incorporated, which was called Golden Threads. On the 30th, I signed with both Gundu and Recovet. Recovet was the owner of the coffee shop where I was purchasing from. Following that loan agreement, 575,600 was paid to Recovet by Gundu Wealth Solutions. The capital advance was repaid as provided for in the loan agreement by 3 installments. And the installments were paid from the FNB business account of T5 and Sylvanas Events to Gundu Wealth Netbank account on the following dates. The 9th of October 2020, the 12th of November 2020, and the 7th of January 2021. Chair, I would like to contextualize the reasoning and the timing for the payment. T5 and Golden Threads carried for about 3 years the establishment of the coffee shop. In 2019, in October, was the exact time that Sylvana was able to have its account, now trying to be running above board in terms of not being dependent on T5 and Golden Threads. And that was 2019. Preparations were made between myself and Gundu to commence with the payment after the coffee shop had been fully registered in 2019. Prior that, the business T5, to assist the operation of the coffee shop, it was servicing Recovet on the other portion that couldn't be paid from the 575, including rental, including equipment, which some Recovet left and it had to be paid. In March 2020, in fact, in February or somewhere there, we started getting calls from the Office of the National Treasury and Provincial Treasury, meeting the 12 municipalities and informing us that the bank will be going under administration and they would want to commence with the forensics. I informed Mr. Raliom, because I was now supposed to start with the repayment, that I will hold the repayment until the Limpopo provincial investigations are concluded. In total, it was 12 municipalities. If you go to the report, I think Polokwane is chapter 13 of the report. The investigation took about 18 to 20 months. I may not be exact in terms of calculations. But on the 9th, the very same day I made the payment, was the day I officially received the report in hand as the mayor from Limpopo Provincial Treasury. Because the investigation were concluded and I had fully participated, those who have got experience of understanding that you will then be called, you will have to provide documents, you'll have to provide municipal council resolutions, etc. That process was undertaken and all of us participated, from the investment management committee to the executive mayor. I made the first payment on that day, on the 9th of October 2020. And again on the 12th of November, and the final one, totaling around 849,000, with an interest calculated at about 11.2% or so at the time. So in excess of about 250 was the interest that was paid to Kundu. I've touched a bit on the Limpopo Treasury investigations. It is important that I indicate to the House that the investigations will obviously come with remedial action and corrective measures. Paragraph 18.92 of that report didn't spare me, as the executive mayor, from a corrective measure. And I'm quoting it. It is recommended that corrective action be considered against the executive mayor, Nkandimeng, in that she failed to comply with Section 52 of the Municipal Finance Management Act. Considering that Polokwane municipality did not incur any losses, and I, as a mayor, was proactive enough to order the withdrawal of investment, as I indicated, even before National Treasury wrote to us, and the money of council was paid back with its interest into the municipal account. Upon response, we were then taken back again into the Standard Bank, which is the municipal account, by the forensic to go and prove together with the bank as to whether the money was paid truly into the bank, and that step was undertaken. And the corrective measure was sanctioned was to go either to University of Pretoria or the University of Witwatersrand, which are the only ones that offers, jointly with LG SETA, that is local government SETA, a program which is designed by National Treasury called Municipal Finance Management Act. In short, we call it MFMP. It's a 2-year program. I took this corrective measure very seriously. I commenced with my studies the following year when universities opened in January. I registered. It was a block program. I will leave Polokwane every week to come and attend a block of the entire Municipal Finance Management Act in its entirety. I actually concluded, honorable members, this program after I was even no longer a mayor, when I was a deputy minister. So ordinarily, if I had not taken that corrective measure seriously, I would have said, well, I'm no longer the mayor, I'm no longer on MFMA, but I will leave it. But I stuck to that 2 years. I concluded the program. I'd like to draw to a close and affirm that, one, there was no improper relationship. I requested for a loan. A loan was advanced. Interestingly, today I saw something circulating, which I'd never heard, which indicates even from the other side that the transaction was Silvana's loan. Much has been said about the conflict of interest to the position I now hold. The Department of Justice and Constitutional Development plays no role in decision-making by the NPA on who to prosecute or not. The office I hold does not have a direct relationship in instructing or convincing the NPA on how to act on their mandate. On the matter of taking the loan, I've dealt with the allegations of conflict. And my understanding was that if you ask for assistance on someone who doesn't have a direct bearing or payment from the municipality, it is possible, and I repaid it back. When the president informed me that he is assigning me to this department, the issue of conflict of interest actually that crossed my mind was not this issue. It was an issue that I am, on behalf of my family, sitting in court on the case of my sister, that the NPA has placed charges on allegations of murder to people. That's what crossed my mind. I discussed it with the president as well. And we both came to a conclusion that it is a matter that is already sitting in court. I have got no say in it. It will live its life and it will come to its conclusion. And I decided that I will take the request by the president, because I also do believe that's what even the person that I thought I shouldn't take the responsibility because of her would have wanted me to put the people of South Africa first. And it was on those bases that I accepted the request by the president. And having convinced myself that even in that case, I cannot, will never be able to influence the NPA on how to do its work. And I wouldn't want to elaborate on the commitment I gave them in my first meeting on my willingness to assist and my willingness to be able to cooperate all the time on any needs that they have and work that they would want to do.
The explanation given by the minister is not make sure. It's not make sure, right? That's not incorrect grammar. That's just a reference we have from social media where there was a clip where a guy said something is not make sure, right? So let's go and look at the facts in the first instance. Make sure that we are clear on what are the known facts that are common cause at this particular point. Number one, VBS Mutual Bank orchestrated a scam where they collected deposits from municipalities, and those deposits were unlawfully deposited in the bank in violation of the Banks Act, the Municipal Finance Management Act. The CEO and several other individuals then squandered that money. They gave themselves loans that were not properly processed, and it was basically a massive, massive heist. The people who were involved in the transfer of the deposits were rewarded by various ways by VBS. We know that VBS gave politicians loans through various instruments and vehicles, and this is how they paid off the politicians for their deposits. We know that as well, that people who were selling this idea and getting municipalities to deposit money into VBS Bank were being paid commissions between 1 and 2%, 2% being the typical number. We know that in respect to the Minister of Justice, her municipality, the Polokwane municipality, deposited 349 million rands into the VBS Bank. We know that Gundo Investments or Wealth Management was the financial consultancy which recommended the depositing of the money into the VBS Bank. We know that this company, Gundo Wealth Management or Gundo Investments, got an amount of 24 million rands from VBS. We know that the minister got a loan of 575,000 from VBS, and by the time where she paid back this amount of money, which was not paid back in a regular fashion, she had paid effectively a 47% interest on that quote-unquote loan. We know that the minister paid back the loan at the point at which the VBS report started getting hot, or at the point at which there was an investigation into VBS from her own version. We know that in February or March of 2020, the municipality started getting calls from the National Treasury that VBS would be investigated. We know that there was an investigation, and that investigation terminated in October. We know then that the minister paid back the money that she had taken from Gundo Investment in 3 installments of 283,333 rands. These installments were paid from the minister's FNB bank account to Gundo Wealth Solutions Netbank account on the following dates: 9 October 2020, 12 November 2020, and 7 January 2021. These are the facts. What are the issues? The issues that arise are the following. Number one, was the loan a legitimate loan, or was the loan a gratification for the Polokwane deposit? A Gratification is just a fancy word for bribe. This is something that will continue to be investigated, and this is why people are asking for the loan agreement to verify if indeed there was a loan agreement and if indeed the minister's version is correct. That still needs to be investigated. It's important to note that there is a code of ethics for members of council, including the mayor, and that code of ethics prohibits them from taking any sort of gratification, bribes, rewards, payments for any work or any benefit that any other company or whatever gets. However, it doesn't specifically prohibit loans, which is part of the reason why VBS gave loans. These loans were given by VBS according to Matodzi to make sure that people were under the control of VBS, that they owed VBS. They were not necessarily meant to be taken or recollected, but they were meant to impose some kind of a yoke between you and VBS. And they were given as to these people because you could get a loan from VBS, but you couldn't necessarily just get money, right? Because if you get money, then that becomes obvious that you took a bribe, right? But if you take a loan, you've got a cover story that you can have. This is just in general. This is why you hear a lot of people saying, I took a loan from VBS. I took a loan. It was a loan. It was a loan, right? So that question of loan, that question of was it a legitimate loan or was it, concealed gratification is an issue that arises in this and many other instances of people who took loans. Number two, were the repayments of the loan part of a cover-up? That's a second issue that arises because it does seem as if the minister became aware at some point, Thembi Simelane, that listen, something's not right here and I need to get out of this. And this is what it appears, right? I'm not saying that it's true or that it's factual, but that is the appearance that comes up from her version. Right. So the question that then arises is whether repayments part of repayments of the loan part of a cover up, because these are not monthly installments that were repaid. It was 3 chunks of money that were repaid by a person who said they needed a loan, and now all of a sudden they can pay back the money. Right. But the money was paid back to Gundo. Whether Gundo paid back the money to VBS is another question altogether. Number 3, is there a conflict of the third issue which arises in this particular instance and moment? Is there a conflict of interest between the position of Minister of Justice and being under investigation by the police or Hawks for this particular issue? Let's look at the principles, right? Firstly, the conflict of interest question. Section 2B of the Executive Members Ethics Act is a code of conduct, and it states the following. Cabinet members, deputy ministers, and MECs are prohibited from undertaking any other paid work, B, acting in a way that is inconsistent with their office, C, exposing themselves, listen very carefully now, I'm not being super, but listen carefully now, exposing themselves to any situation involving the risk of a conflict of interest between their official responsibilities and their private interests, right? That is what the Executive Members Ethics Act says about conflict of interest. Then, it's important now to consider what are the roles and powers of the Director of the National Prosecuting Authority and how this pertains to this case, right? So this comes from the National Prosecuting Act, and it's good to start with the director to be able to follow whether or not there's actually going to be any conflict. So Section 22 of the National Prosecuting Authority Act deals with the powers, duties, and functions of a national director, and it says the following. Section 22(1) says, the national director, as the head of the prosecuting authority, shall have authority over the exercising of all the powers and performance of all the duties and functions conferred or imposed on or assigned to any member of the prosecuting authority. So any prosecutor, any member of the prosecuting authority falls under the head, the national director. That person has authority over all of them, right? And Section 22.2 says, in accordance with Section 179 of the Constitution, the National Director, A, must determine prosecution policy and issue policy directive. B, may intervene in any prosecution process when policy directives are not complied with. C, may review, right? May review a decision to prosecute or not to prosecute after consulting with the relevant director and after taking representations within the period specified by the national director of the accused person, the complainant, and any other person or party whom the national director considers to be relevant. This is a significant power. They can review a decision to prosecute or not to prosecute. In other words, they can overturn it, right? Then it goes on to say at 22.4, in addition to any other powers, duties, and functions conferred or imposed or assigned to the national director by section 179 of the Constitution or any other provision of the Constitution, this act or any other law, the national director, as head of the prosecuting authority, with a view to exercising his or her powers in terms of subsection 2, may 1. Conduct any investigation he or she may deem necessary in respect of a prosecution or prosecution process or directives, directions, or guidelines given or issued by a director in terms of this act or case or matter relating to such a prosecution or a prosecution process or directives, directions, or guidelines. 2. Direct submission of and receive reports or interim reports from a director in respect of a case, a matter or prosecution process or directions or guidelines given or issued by a director in terms of this act. And 3, advise the minister on all matters relating to the administration of criminal justice. Further, it says at 22.4G, it says the following: the director shall prepare a comprehensive report in respect of the operations of the prosecuting authority, which shall include reporting on the activities of the national director, deputy national directors, directors, and the prosecuting authority as a whole, the personnel position of the prosecuting authority, the financial implications in respect of the administration operation of the prosecuting authority, any recommendations or suggestions in respect of the prosecuting authority, information relating to training programs for the prosecutors, any other information which the director deems necessary, and may make recommendations to the minister, this is J, with regard to the prosecuting authority or the administration of justice as a whole. These are all things that are then sent to the minister. So you can see that the minister actually has a tremendous amount of authority over the Director of National Prosecution. But it doesn't end there, because Section 33 of the Act deals specifically with the minister. Section 33 of the NPA Act addresses the minister's final responsibility over the prosecuting authority. It says, Section 33.1, the Minister of Justice shall, for the purposes of Section 179 of the Constitution, this Act or any other law concerning the prosecuting authority, exercise final responsibility over the prosecuting authority in accordance with provisions of this Act. Number 2, to enable the minister's exercise of his or her final responsibility over the prosecuting authority as contemplated in Section 179 of the Constitution, the National Director shall, at the request of the minister, A, furnish the minister with information or a report with regard to any case, matter, or subject dealt with by the national director or a director in the exercise of their powers, the carrying out of their duties, and the performance of their functions. B, provide the minister with reasons for any decision taken by a director in the exercise of his or her powers, the carrying out of his or her duties, or the performance of his or her functions. C, furnish the minister with information with regard to the prosecution policy referred to in Section 21.1A of the Act, and D, to furnish the minister with information with regard to the policy directives, and E, to submit reports as contemplated in Section 34 to the minister, and D, arrange meetings between the minister and members of the prosecuting authority. These are the powers and responsibilities that the Minister of Justice has over the National Director of the Prosecuting Authority, who has the powers that I've mentioned already. So, when you take all of this together, the following is clear. I'm going to make four particular points. Number 1, there is a direct oversight role between the minister and the director of the National Prosecuting Authority. Number 2, there is a risk of conflict of interest. Number 3, the risk of conflict of interest is the first test in the executive members' ethics code of conduct, right? The risk of conflict of interest. It's not just the conflict of interest that is a violation of the code of conduct. It is the risk. The fact that there is a risk, that particular possibility in and of itself is a violation of the Executive Members Ethics Act Code of Conduct. Number 4, it appears that there is a conflict of interest, and I'm going to articulate what that appearance is. As things stand, the minister has an interest, self-preservation interest, and that self-preservation interest is she has an interest to prevent herself from being arrested. She has an interest to prevent herself from being fired. But the public, right, has a different interest. That interest is an interest in getting the perpetrators and beneficiaries of VBS Bank heist being held accountable. That is a conflict because there is a possibility that in her desire to self-preserve, she may go against the interests of the VBS investigation. This conflict has a potential to cause abuse of power by the minister, or it could lead to a chilling effect within the prosecution authority. A chilling effect being that people just begin to drag their feet to not actually look a particular direction because it affects the most powerful person in their ministry. Investigating the person in charge of your department is not usually the best way to advance your career in that department. And other people who seek career advancement as well could unscrupulously then begin to conceal evidence in pursuit of rapid career projections. Because if I protect the minister, then I am going to get a reward, right? This is what is the real issue here and what can create a conflict of interest. These are risks which are associated with the continued leadership of the minister in that portfolio. They are real risks. They are real risks. 5th point, and it's a moral point, right? It appears to me that the minister made a mistake while she was the mayor of Polokwane. She went and asked for financial advice from people who were doing business with the municipality. And then she tried to also get funding from that particular group. That in and of itself was a bad set of decisions. Even if you take her explanation at its best. This is why the explanation is also not make sure. At its best, it gives indication that the minister made a blunder. At its worst, it gives indication that she asked for a bribe. Because the bribes that were being given were loans. That's how VBS was bribing people. And that's what they actually said themselves as VBS in some of their explanations, right? So for instance, let me go to some of the stuff that Matodzi actually said himself. He said the following. This is Matodzi. He said, this is what he said. He said of his activities, right? I knowingly participated in the formulation and promotion of unlawful activities, either alone or in cahoots with other participants, both within and outside VBS Bank, in the acquisition of investment from municipalities around the Republic. The above was achieved with my active participation in compromising municipal officials through offers of gratification. The above was achieved with my active participation in compromising municipal officers through offers of gratification. This was done with my approval and knowledge. Then he says, officials that were deemed strategic in these entities were actively encouraged. Listen to what Matodzi says in the affidavit that he signed for his plea deal. Officials that were deemed strategic in these entities were actively encouraged to apply for loans at VBS or to move to VBS their existing bank loans and loan facilities that they held at other banks. These loans, the loans to individuals, were granted without following strict credit policies of VBS and or ignoring the individual's adverse credit profile. This was deliberately designed to ensure that these individuals are permanently indebted to VBS while they remain employed at their respective entities. Now, it's clear that the minister did not take a loan from VBS, but she took a loan from someone who was involved in sales at VBS. And this is what Matodzi said about the people who were involved in sales and marketing, right? And I'm just going to read about one of the people whose name was Ntendeni Sasa Nemabubini, right? So this is what, and he's referred to as Sasa. At the relevant time, Ntendani Sasa Nemabubini was the general manager for sales and marketing at VBS. To my knowledge, Sasa was involved in irregular activities in the following manner. He was involved in actively pursuing investments for VBS and the facilitation and payments of irregular commissions and kickbacks to municipal officers. He was aware of the gratification scheme being paid to the VBS commission agents, who in turn paid gratification to municipal officers. He participated in cash delivery meant for gratuity payments to VBS commission agents and municipal employees alike. I'm aware that Sasa received gratification from me for the successful conclusion of certain municipal investments. He was granted an overdraft facility through one of his companies known as NAAP Holdings for his own benefit and with the assistance of Soli. Soli is another character mentioned in the whole saga. So what I'm trying to put across here is that it's very clear that Gundo, the world company that was run by another individual, knew about these loan structures, etc., and would have been also capable of giving the same loan to the minister, or that this loan story is not make sure. These are the realities and the possibilities that arise from this particular situation. These are the realities and the possibilities that arise from this particular situation. So there's a real moral issue here that still is not going away. It's not going away. Look, people speak well of the Minister of Justice. They speak well of her. They have pain about what happened to her sister. I believe her sister's name is Noktula, an activist for MK who appears to have been tortured and who disappeared, and possibly who was killed by the apartheid regime. Very tragic story. Very tragic, and something that is still being dealt with up to now. So people like her, they speak well of her. And many people were at pains to say, look, this is not personal. This is not about you. I don't think that they thought that somebody like her would be caught in this VBS issue. But it does appear that she has been implicated through a proxy entity in this VBS matter. But that is how the VBS entities were being paid out, etc., etc. Right? So she's implicated at this particular point. She also, it's important to note that she tried to fix this mistake as soon as she could. She withdrew the municipality money when she was kind of aware that, no, something's not right here. She tried to pay back the loan money when she saw that, hey, this thing is not going to end well, right? This is what it looks like to me. But now it's come to light. People may speak well of you. They may respect you. They may have good things to say about your family, but this has now come to light, and she is now implicated in the biggest municipality corruption scandal. And she has put President Ramaphosa in a very difficult position. Because remember, I said there were two challenges that the GNU coalition, as it's called, was facing, and this is the second. The DA has had some trouble coming out of John Steenhuisen's office. And this has put the president in a compromising position. Because number one, John Steenhuisen has appointed someone who's known as Roman Kabanak, who has made problematic statements, one of which is insulting the president, some of which are problematic statements in as far as they pertain to race, and as far as they pertain to the Sharpeville massacre. There's actually a whole story on him in the Sunday Times that you can read. This has been the first challenge, because now what do you do as the head of state, as the head of this coalition, as the president? Because the guy who's the leader of the biggest party in your coalition has appointed someone who insulted you, but not only that, has also been trying to appoint people who are unqualified into the cabinet office that he occupies. So this has been challenge one, but it's been relatively a small challenge. But now this is a second challenge, and it's much bigger. Because are you going to fire your minister? Is she going to step aside? Right? There were very tough questions that were being asked to the minister. So this is now where she has put President Cyril Ramaphosa in a very difficult position. And the DA is likely to use this as leverage. They were the ones who were asking the tough questions to the minister. And they know that John is in his own kind of trouble. So this could put tension within the DA and ANC coalition +8. That's where things are. And listen to the kind of questions that came from Glenys Breitenberg, the person in the DA who is most involved in these type of issues in the committee. Listen to this.
Question, Minister, is as the Mayor of Polokwane, what was your involvement in making investments? I understand that there's a structure there, there's a municipal manager, there's people who do the finances and make decisions, but as the Mayor, the buck stops with you really for everything. And so how involved were you and how much did you know about investments in general and in this one in particular? Mr. Chair, I think it might be useful if we get answers to questions as we ask them, as opposed to asking 2 or 3 or 4 and waiting for answers, because the answers may erase other questions.
That will take us the whole day on Breitenberg. I get the spirit, but let's ask. They are going to note and they're going to respond to.
I think it's less effective, but anyhow. Then, bearing in mind that you're the Mayor and that you have the buck stops with you, I'm making the assumption that you then know quite a lot about what goes on in the municipality, that you make it your job to understand what's happening, and more particularly with the finances. It's important. And so you would have known about this this investment at VBS. And my question is really this. VBS is not a normal bank, it's a mutual bank, or was a mutual bank, in which municipalities were not authorized to invest. And you do in your statement make mention of other investments, Standard Bank, Nedbank, ABSA, investing. Those are proper banks, not a mutual bank. And you were not entitled as the municipality to make investments in a mutual bank. So the investment itself is unlawful. You also say that Ganda Wealth Solutions is not a typical contractor in the strict sense of the word, in that the municipality did not pay them for their services rendered. Well, that may or may not be so, I don't know, except what you're telling me. What is clear from the analysis of the money is that they were certainly richly remunerated by VBS for garnering investments and made a vast amount of money for doing very little, also paid huge kickbacks. And that's not in dispute. Huge kickbacks to the people who made the investments. So the whole scheme was a cynical, sick and dodgy scheme to defraud the poorest of the poor people, particularly in Limpopo, and is unconscionable. So Ganda is not a charitable organization that does things because of their love of advancing the cause of South Africans. They did it to make dodgy money, and they made dodgy money, and lots of it. Now, it's the dodgy money that's the problem, because all of their money was dodgy money, and you were the recipient of some of that dodgy money. So, my question to you is, why do you say that because they were not paid, they were not a typical contractor? Of course they were. They were just paid elsewhere. And that being the position, then, why did you seek personal financial advice from an entity that was, in fact, doing business with the municipality of which you were the man? The head honcho, the top of the pyramid, where the buck stopped with you, and they knew it. So, of course, I'd be happy to accommodate you because we've seen what kind of investments were being made for them and the benefits that they accrued from those investments. So there is a conflict of interest. And my question is, why did you not see it? Why did you approach them for advice? They're also styled as Ganda Wealth Solutions, Ganda Wealth Management. Who knows what they were and what they did. But what they were not was a registered service provider, or a registered financial services provider. And so they were, in fact, not able to just give loans in the normal course of their business. It wasn't the normal course of their business. Very few loans were made. Lots of kickbacks were paid. All of the stolen money was, dissipated. Very few loans were made. Yours was one of the very few. So why would you have negotiated a loan with an entity doing business with your municipality who was not a registered financial services provider? And did you, at any stage, attempt to get an arm's length, proper, ordinary commercial loan from a bank? Your own bank, wherever you banked. Sure, you would have been able to get a loan from your own bank. So why did you get a loan from them? What was so attractive about doing business with Ganda, particularly bearing in mind the extortionate, really extortionate, if your figures are correct in paragraph 27 of your statement, of the interest on a loan of 575,600 you paid interest of 274,399. That's practically 50%. And in fact, it works out to 47%. 47% interest on a loan that in the bigger scheme of things is not even huge. Why would you enter into such a one-sided transaction when you could have gone to a real bank and gotten a real loan at a real interest rate? It makes no commercial sense whatsoever, none. And so it makes the whole transaction, forgive me, look exceptionally suspicious. Also, the timing thereof is exceptionally suspicious. Money flows from the municipality to DBS, money flows from DBS to Gando, money flows from Gando to the purchase of the coffee shop, all in the space of a very short period of time. It may be a coincidence, but in a long time of operating in the criminal justice system, I've learned to be very suspicious of a confluence of coincidences. And normally, they point to trouble. And I see no reason to have less suspicion about this entire matter. So if you could help me with that. I'm also then interested in the name of the investment group, T5 Investment Group. Where did the name come from? Was it a shelf company? And if not, what does the T5 stand for? Your name is Thembi. Is it related to you somehow? Have you got 5 investment companies? Is that what the 5 is for? I would be interested to know more about the name. Then I'll move off of that subject because I'm sure that my colleagues have questions and will cover it. But I must deal with the glaring current conflict of interest that certainly exists, whether you want to see it or not, Minister, with respect. That certainly exists between yourself and the National Prosecuting Authority. We all remember, some of us more painfully than others, the demise of Mr. or Advocate Vusi Pikoli as the National Director of Public Prosecutions when Jackie Selebi was prosecuted, and he wouldn't back down. He was instructed to not proceed with the prosecution by the Minister of Justice. He refused to do that because Vusi Pikoli is an honorable man. And he lost his job because of it, much to the absolute destruction of the NPA, because what happened at the NPA after Mr. Pikoli left could not have happened while he was there. And I think we all know that, and I think you know that too. And he was fired then because there was the supposed breakdown of a relationship between himself and the Justice Minister, who at the time was Minister, I think, Mabandla. Now, if it is so, as you want us to believe here, that there's absolutely no possibility of a Justice Minister having an influence over the NPA, and I agree with you, there should be no such influence, and the NPA should tolerate no such influence, none. It's a non-thing, it should never be allowed, but we live in the real world, and we've seen this happen. And so it's not true that the Justice Minister does not have influence over the NPA, even if it's a very subtle influence. Of course you do. And how you choose to exercise it is, of course, up to the Justice Minister. And I've not got any reason to suggest that you've done anything untoward in that regard, and I'm not suggesting it. But perceptions, Minister, are everything. And the public and myself see the justice system as a pyramid. And there's the police, and there's the NPA, and there's the Department of Justice, and then there's you. And you sit at the top of that pyramid. And that's inescapable. It's an ineluctable conclusion that you cannot sit on top of the pyramid while a matter such as this is being investigated. Because it is being investigated. As we read this morning in the papers, the Hawks have executed search and seizure warrants in Polokwane on the office that you occupy. And they're clearly investigating, amongst other things, this transaction. And so there's an inescapable problem there. And there is a conflict of interest. And it doesn't matter how honorably you conduct yourself. It matters that perceptions are everything. And my perception, and I'm sure the perception of the public at large, is that you cannot continue to sit on the top of this pyramid while this matter is pending. So I'd like your view on that. It is a fact. And again, I want to stress this is not personal. It is a fact. It is a perception. It can't be thought away. It doesn't matter how honorably you conduct yourself.
Let me ask you, how do you think this will end? The minister is going to do an interview on ENCA, and by the time she does the interview, this could be uploaded. I don't know if you've seen that. I don't know if you've watched this, but this is a real scandal for her, for the president, and it's a critical moment for this particular DA-ANC coalition +8, and it's happening before 100 days of this coalition. How do you think it's going to end? Do you think that the president should act or ignore this? Or do you think it will blow over because the DA can't afford to come at him too much? Let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. I'm going to the comments now. I want to see what you have to say. I'll be in the comments. Let's talk. Till the next one.